If you feel stuck in the work from home routine, like no matter what you do, you can never really mentally clock out. Maybe it's checking Slack messages at 8 p.m. just because your laptop's open, then there's a good chance that the boundaries between your work and personal have become so blurred, it starts to feel more like you're living at work than working from home. I found that when you start to mix your personal space with your workplace, it can be really tough to maintain different zones. Without that physical commute, there's not really a clear signal for your brain to understand that the workday has ended, and a lot of that stress can start to pour over into the evening. So, today I want to share my work from home reset and some of the techniques that I've developed over the years as a 9 to 5 employee. While I generally try to stick to that schedule, there are definitely times where a call runs late or I get pulled in early mornings, and it can feel like it really disrupts my routine. And that's exactly when I need to rely on these techniques even more. One of the main things with burnout isn't that you're just working harder, it's that you don't often have enough time to recover. But what I found is that it's not just having hours and hours on the couch, doom scrolling, watching TV that actually feels restful. It's actually having a clear division, physically and digitally, when it comes to your work and personal life. The first technique is the 5-minute brain dump. One of the biggest reasons you'll feel stressed after work is because you actually haven't stopped working. There's probably a dozen conversations you had, open tasks, or maybe even ideas that you forgot to put to paper or write down in your notes app. And all of these open loops can really start to wear on you if they don't have a place to go. So one way that I solve this is 5 minutes before I clock out for the day, I actually turn on a dictation app and I just talk through everything that I accomplished, everything I got done, any thoughts that are still going on in my head, and then I try to set one clear task that I want to focus on for the next day. I use an app called Whisper on my Mac that lets me just dictate all my thoughts, and it's really good about fixing mistakes and fixing punctuation and formatting it really nicely. So for me, it does two things. I'm clearing out all my work thoughts for the day, and I'm also setting up the next morning for success. So when I sit down at my desk, I know exactly what it is I want to work on. Of course, this doesn't have to be digital. You could also write this all out on pen and paper. You just want to get to a point where your brain feels safe and that you can actually let go of those thoughts for the day. Number two is physical separation. So as soon as I've wrapped up my brain dump for the day, I make a really big effort to get out of this room and ideally get out of the house. We're essentially trying to recreate the commute where we give our brain 20-30 minutes to unwind and just physically separate from this environment. It's okay if you don't end up leaving the house, but the number one thing is that you don't go directly to the couch or lie down in bed. Because 9 times out of 10, when I do this, even if I started scrolling on Instagram, I almost always end up gravitating back to my work email, opening Slack just to check if there's any extra messages. And that's usually happening because my nervous system is still going for the day and it's still in work mode because you haven't given yourself enough buffer time. Now, if your desk is in a guest bedroom or it's not in a dedicated space, just try to do something that will be a visual cue to your brain that work is over for the day. So this could literally look like putting a blanket over your monitor. I did that for a couple months a few years back where it actually put a sleeve over my whole monitor, and that was just a really easy way to know that I shouldn't be working or looking at that space. You could also unplug your laptop and go put it in a shelf so it's out of sight. Whatever ritual works for you, just pick something that is simple and easy to keep up with every day. Number 3 is changing your clothes. This might sound really obvious or incredibly simple, but when you used to go to an office, you were typically dressing up a little differently than you would probably be at home. When I was working at a large corporation, I definitely had dedicated work clothes, but it actually made it easier because as soon as I got home, I would want to change out of those. I almost always associated those specific pants and dress shirts with the office, and I rarely wore them for personal occasions. But as soon as I got home, I was throwing on shorts or sweatpants. So whatever brings you comfort, maybe it's changing your socks, throwing on a different shirt, actually switching this out makes it feel like you're starting a whole new segment of your day. Number 4 is getting exercise. And if I had to give you one thing to focus on out of this entire list, it would be getting enough movement throughout your day. One of my favorite quotes is, "Emotion is created by motion." If you want to change how you feel, you have to change how you move. Working from home typically means that you're sitting in the same place all day. And if you really can't get around throughout the day, whether it's going to a coffee shop or working at a kitchen table, whatever it is, then you must try to make that up at the end of the day. For me, I'll try to get at least 30 minutes of walking in, and a couple days a week, I'm also lifting. And I found that being able to turn my brain off for that 30-minute, hour-long block allows me to engage my body, move my muscles, and I almost always feel better at the end of that session. Now, before I move on to some of the other techniques, these first four are something that I've created a habit stack out of. So what it looks like for me is that I finish work with my brain dump, I immediately go and change into gym clothes, and I go down to the gym and work out for at least 30, 45 minutes. It can sound like a lot more work when you're listing each of these individually, but I found that if you kind of have a start and a clear end goal, the others just kind of fall into place because you're building momentum so easily. So when I found that if I forced myself to change clothes before sitting down on the couch, I was a lot more likely to go to the gym. And if you can keep that transition time as short as possible, ideally like a minute or 90 seconds, your brain actually doesn't have enough time to talk yourself out of it or make up excuses why you shouldn't go. To be clear, I don't do this every single day. The point is just to walk through some of these techniques so you can find what works for you. Number 5 is actually setting digital boundaries. On the iPhone, you can set up focus modes, which works with Do Not Disturb. And so I actually have a mode that runs from like 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., kind of a 30-minute buffer on each end of my workday. And I only get notifications from work. All my personal stuff is muted. And then after 5:30, it switches into a personal mode, and I'm getting notifications in from friends and family or other apps that I want. And I've actually tied specific wallpapers to each of these focus modes. So when I look at my phone during the day, it's super minimal. All the icons are grayscaled out, so I don't feel tempted to open up apps or look at notification badges. And then finally at 10 p.m., it switches to night mode, and basically the whole screen goes black and all my notifications are turned off. You don't want to get distracted by personal notifications when you're in work hours, but then give yourself the same freedom and luxury when you're on your own time to not get notified and get pinged from work. Number 6 is the weekly review, and this builds on the brain dump, but essentially you want a reflection time, ideally at least 10 or 15 minutes, just to look over the week and see what other loose ends you still have. Because even if you've been doing your daily wrap-ups, then typically your brain is going to start thinking about Monday and that presentation you have next week when Saturday and Sunday rolls around. So the goal here is to get ahead of that by prepping yourself and setting yourself up for success for the next week. So I ask myself questions like, what went well? What didn't go well? What tasks am I dreading next week? What am I proud of? What ideas do I have? Or any other just practical tasks that I haven't finished yet. I'll take all the tasks and emails and I'll just set a reminder for Monday morning when I set up to plan the week. This really helps me feel like I've made progress and I've done everything I can until Monday rolls around. So if a thought does pop up on Saturday like, oh, I really need to take care of this thing, odds are I've already planned and scheduled time to take care of it for the next week. If you're struggling to figure out what to focus on during this reflection, think about what you feel on a Sunday evening when Monday's about to roll around. I'm sure there's parts of all of our jobs that we hate, but you're really just wanting to focus on what it is you can control. And if you can't control it, then there's no point in stressing about it and giving up your personal time to focus on it. Like I said, it's always helped me to talk through things as a means of processing. And so being able to use dictation apps really helps me get everything out of my head rather than just looking at what's on screen and taking a few notes. So if you really just need to hit record for 15, 20 minutes and completely talk through every possible thought that comes in your brain, that's where AI can help organize things automatically for you. Finally, we have weekend mode. And it might seem kind of counterintuitive to be taking action to relax. Obviously, however you want to unwind and spend your weekend is up to you. But I have noticed trying to avoid certain things is actually what's most helpful here. One of the things I look forward to every weekend is not setting an alarm. I pretty much get up at the same time every day, Monday through Friday. But on Friday night, when I don't have to wear my Apple Watch and get buzzed at 7 a.m., it's a really nice, freeing feeling to start my weekend, start my morning, knowing that I'm already on personal time. For me, this also extends to some of the apps that I use as well. I really try to avoid using apps like Notion or even Gmail, which is what my company uses, so I'm not mixing personal apps with work apps. Even if you do use Gmail for your personal address, then download another app that will allow you to just add your personal account. Because it's so easy to open up something for personal and then you see a notification or you see a badge that just gets you sucked in and thinking about work again. And finally, what's really helped me for the weekend is always trying to just do some outdoor activity. Whether it's going on a long walk, going out for a meal, or even going on a day trip somewhere, just leaving the space is really important. And if you can't do that, like I said, just trying to stay out of the same office, it'll really break a lot of that repetition that comes with working from home. Hopefully you got some value from this video, and I'd love to hear what tips and techniques you've developed to help separate your work from personal if you're someone who works from home. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.